Donald Trump spent an entire night engaged in what sources are calling a complete psychotic breakdown on social media, and his behavior might have crossed the line from merely chaotic into territory where the 25th Amendment becomes legitimate discussion. We're not talking about occasional controversial posts or aggressive political rhetoric. We're talking about reports that Trump made hundreds of posts in a matter of hours.
The operation here looks very different from that. And then he told me it was successful in Venezuela.
He talked to you about Venezuela.
He did. I'm not sure what gave him the indication that at this point in time what's happening to my state that I'm interested in Venezuela, but he told me how well that went. Which really was strange to me was he saw an operation in Venezuela against a foreign nation in the same context he saw an operation against a U.S. state and a U.S. city.
Accused Barack Obama of treason, claimed the CIA coordinated with China to steal the 2020 election using tools called Hammer and Scorecard, called a murdered ICU nurse a domestic terrorist, posted profanity-laced messages telling critics to shut up. And then, while this manic posting spree continued, sources suggest he ordered FBI agents and Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard to raid the Fulton County election office and seize 2020 ballots 4 years after the election ended. When a president engages in all-night social media meltdowns while simultaneously deploying federal agents to investigate conspiracy theories about elections he lost, questions about cognitive fitness and ability to perform presidential duties might not be partisan attacks. They could be legitimate concerns about whether someone experiencing apparent mental health crisis should continue holding nuclear codes and commanding military forces. But before we break down everything, please subscribe to our channel, John Brown Show. Your subscription actually matters here. All right, let's get into what Trump actually posted during his overnight meltdown and why sources suggest this represents something more concerning than typical political provocations. Because when you look at the volume, content, and timing of these posts alongside his decision to raid election offices over 4-year-old ballots, a pattern allegedly emerges that mental health professionals might characterize as manic episode or psychotic break. Reports indicate Trump made hundreds of social media posts in rapid succession, not carefully crafted political messaging. Apparently, stream of consciousness accusations and conspiracy theories posted at all hours, suggesting he wasn't sleeping, but rather fixated on grievances and fantasies. The content ranged from claiming Obama committed treason to alleging CIA coordinated with China to steal elections to calling a murdered nurse a domestic terrorist to posting profanity. And simultaneously, he allegedly ordered federal agents to conduct raid on Georgia election facilities, seeking evidence of conspiracy theories every court has rejected. When someone in their late 70s exhibits behavior patterns that include sleepless posting marathons, grandiose accusations of treason without evidence, fixation on events from years ago, profanity-laced outbursts, and deployment of federal resources to pursue delusions, that might not be vigorous leadership. Sources suggest that could be cognitive decline or mental health crisis requiring intervention before decisions made in that state cause irreparable harm. Let's start by documenting the sheer volume and nature of Trump's social media activity during what appears to have been an all-night session, because sources suggest the quantity alone raises questions about whether he's sleeping or engaging in normal presidential routines. Reports indicate Trump made hundreds of posts, not spread over days or weeks, apparently in the span of several hours overnight, post after post after post, with no apparent pause or moderation. Think about what that behavior pattern suggests. Normal presidents don't spend entire nights making hundreds of social media posts. They sleep, they have schedules, they delegate communications to staff who craft messaging strategically. When someone allegedly stays up all night posting obsessively, that's behavior pattern associated with manic episodes or psychological distress, not stable leadership. And the content reportedly escalated in severity as the night progressed. Trump accused former President Barack Obama of treason. That's not policy criticism. That's accusing a predecessor of a capital crime, punishable by death, based on no evidence whatsoever. Just assertion that Obama will face justice for treason without explaining what treasonous acts he allegedly committed. Then sources indicate Trump posted elaborate conspiracy theory about the 2020 election, not just claiming it was stolen, allegedly detailing specific CIA tools called Hammer and Scorecard that he claims were used, asserting China coordinated the entire operation, saying the CIA oversaw it and the FBI covered it up to install Biden as puppet. That's not questioning election security. That might be paranoid delusion involving multiple federal agencies conspiring with foreign powers. When President of the United States posts detailed conspiracy theories implicating CIA and FBI in election theft coordinated with China, that raises questions about his connection to reality. And reports suggest Trump continued defaming Alex Prey, the ICU nurse who was killed during Minneapolis raid, called him domestic terrorist, reposted accounts saying he wasn't peaceful protester, but rather threat to law enforcement. When video evidence contradicts those characterizations and Trump continues making them anyway, that might indicate inability to process factual information that contradicts preferred narrative. That's concerning cognitive pattern. Recently, sources indicate Trump also posted profanity during this meltdown. The President of the United States allegedly wrote, "Maybe it's time to shut the fuck up and let him cook," and posted it publicly. Think about what that reveals. Loss of impulse control, inability to maintain presidential decorum even in official communications, using language that would be inappropriate in professional settings, let alone from someone holding highest office. When combined with volume of posting and conspiracy content, it paints a picture of someone who might not be in control of their behavior. But what might make Trump's overnight behavior most concerning is that it wasn't just social media activity. Sources indicate that while engaging in this posting frenzy, he also ordered FBI agents to raid the Fulton County, Georgia election office and seize 2020 ballots, not 2024 ballots from recent election, ballots from election that happened 4 years ago. Election that every court, including judges Trump appointed, ruled was legitimate. And he allegedly sent not just FBI, but also Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard to personally oversee this operation. Think about what that decision reveals. Trump is fixated on 2020 election to degree that 4 years later he's deploying federal resources to investigate conspiracy theories courts have repeatedly rejected. That's not normal political dispute. That might be inability to accept reality or move past traumatic loss. When someone remains so fixated on an event from years ago that they're still actively trying to prove alternative version happened, mental health professionals might call that maladaptive coping or detachment from reality. And reports suggest the raid itself accomplished nothing legitimate. Federal agents showed up with trucks, seized boxes of ballots, removed them from county custody without clear legal justification. Local officials expressed concern they can no longer guarantee ballot security because federal government has taken them somewhere unknown. This allegedly wasn't normal evidence collection for active investigation. This was raid designed to validate Trump's conspiracy theories regardless of whether evidence actually supports them. The presence of Tulsi Gabbard is particularly strange according to sources. The Director of National Intelligence is supposed to coordinate intelligence gathering about foreign threats, not personally oversee searches of domestic election offices. Photos allegedly show Gabbard on phone inside vehicle loaded with boxes outside Fulton County facility. Legal experts are reportedly calling this completely bizarre and unheard of for DNI to be physically present at search warrant execution. It suggests Trump views every federal resource, including intelligence apparatus, as personal tools to pursue his grievances. And when you combine the raid with Trump's overnight posting about Obama's treason and CIA stealing elections, sources suggest a pattern emerges. Trump might genuinely believe these conspiracy theories aren't theories but reality, and he's using presidential power to try forcing federal government to validate his alternate version of events. When someone can't distinguish between evidence-based reality and conspiracy theories they want to be true, that's cognitive impairment that should concern anyone regardless of politics. Reports also indicate Trump also compared his Minnesota ICE operations to Venezuela operations, according to Governor Tim Walz. Trump allegedly told Walz that operations were successful in Venezuela, that he saw operation against foreign nation in same context as operation against U.S. state. When president can't distinguish between military action in foreign country and law enforcement in American state, that confusion about basic geopolitical categories might indicate cognitive problems affecting judgment. But Trump's behavior during this period allegedly extended beyond just social media and election conspiracy raids. Sources indicate he deployed Dr. Oz to Los Angeles to begin operations targeting the Armenian community using the same playbook that was used against Somalians in Minnesota. And the openly racist nature of this targeting, combined with Trump's amplification of it, might reveal loss of whatever filters previously constrained his worst impulses. Reports suggest Dr. Oz went to popular Armenian bakery and made statements characterizing it as center of fraud. Allegedly said this is where the Russian-Armenian mob engages in crimes. Made comments about dialect being language of mobsters and mafia. That's not law enforcement briefing. That's racial profiling presented as official government position. When you go to ethnic communities' bakery and publicly declare them all criminals based on their ethnicity, that's textbook racism regardless of how it's framed. And Trump reportedly amplified this by posting about fraud in California controlled by Russian mobsters and demanding arrests. Think about what message that sends. First, the administration targets Somalian community in Minnesota, then Armenian community in Los Angeles. The pattern might be deliberately choosing ethnic minority communities for aggressive enforcement designed to intimidate and scapegoat them. That's not immigration policy. That could be ethnic targeting using federal power. Sources indicate Trump also posted that probably close to 89% of Somalians are engaged in welfare fraud in Minnesota. That's not based on any evidence or statistics. That's making up number to demonize entire ethnic community. When president publicly claims almost 90% of specific ethnic group are criminals, mental health professionals might characterize that as manifestation of paranoid thinking or inability to process reality without racial animus affecting perception. The targeting of Armenian community might be particularly concerning given Dr. Oz's background. Reports suggest Armenian community previously accused Oz of being agent of Turkey during his political campaigns. Now he's deployed to target them with accusations of mob connections. That looks like retribution against community that criticized someone Trump appointed. When presidential decisions appear motivated by personal vendettas against ethnic communities, that raises questions about fitness for office. Now, sources indicate international community is taking notice. Reports of potential boycott of FIFA World Cup hosted in United States are becoming more serious. When world sees American president engaging in racial targeting and unleashing federal agents against minority communities, they might decide they don't want to participate in events held in that country. That diplomatic isolation would be consequence of Trump's actions during what might be extended mental health crisis. But what might make Trump's behavior most irrational is that it's occurring while his political position deteriorates dramatically. Sources indicate polling shows his approval has cratered particularly among Latino voters who were supposedly part of his coalition. And his response to these numbers allegedly isn't to moderate or recalibrate. It's to double down on the exact behaviors driving people away. That inability to adjust strategy when it's clearly failing might indicate impaired judgment. Reports suggest Fox News polling shows that only 24% of Americans say they're better off financially than a year ago. 39% say they're worse off. That's devastating for incumbent president. When people feel economy is hurting them, they blame whoever's in charge. And Trump's response allegedly isn't to focus on economic policy. It's to continue immigration raids and post-conspiracy theories about elections. And the specific collapse among Latino voters could be politically fatal. Sources indicate Trump's net approval among Latinos has declined over 20 points compared to a year ago. His rating on deportation programs specifically has dropped over 30 points among Latino voters. When you lose that much support that quickly from demographic you need to win elections, that's political disaster. Yet Trump's response might be escalating the exact policies causing the decline. Think about what rational political calculation would look like. If your Latino approval is cratering because of how immigration enforcement is being conducted, you'd modify the approach. make it less aggressive, target actual criminals rather than conducting sweeps, show compassion for families. But reports suggest Trump is doing opposite, expanding operations to target more communities, making raids more visible and traumatic, defaming victims and calling them terrorists. That's not political strategy. That might be inability to recognize cause and effect relationships. Fox News analysts reportedly described Trump's ICE operations as having hit political limits, even if legally permissible. That people are compassionate and don't like seeing what appears to be innocent people rounded up even if here illegally. When your own propaganda network is telling you you've gone too far and your response is to go further, that suggests inability to process feedback or adjust behavior. Mental health professionals might call that lack of insight or impaired executive function. And sources indicate even some Trump supporters are breaking. One founder of Latinos for Trump allegedly said immigration enforcement will cost Republicans the midterms. Podcasters who supported Trump, like Andrew Schultz, are calling out the Epstein cover-up and ICE tactics. When people who wanted you to succeed are publicly saying you're failing, that feedback should register. Trump's apparent inability to hear it or respond appropriately might indicate cognitive impairment affecting decision-making. Trump's political position is collapsing. His policies are deeply unpopular. The midterms look increasingly catastrophic for Republicans, and his response allegedly is overnight posting marathons accusing predecessors of treason, raiding election offices over 4-year-old conspiracy theories, targeting ethnic communities, and doubling down on exact tactics causing the political damage. That's not strategy. That might be breakdown. So let's talk about whether Trump's behavior meets the criteria for 25th Amendment consideration. Because sources suggest this isn't partisan rhetoric anymore. This could be a legitimate question about whether someone experiencing apparent mental health crisis should continue exercising presidential powers. The 25th Amendment Section 4 allows for removal when president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of office. That language isn't limited to physical incapacity. It allegedly covers any situation where president can't perform the job. Think about what Trump's behavior over last few days reveals about his capacity. Making hundreds of social media posts overnight suggests he's not sleeping. Sleep deprivation causes cognitive impairment, including poor judgment, paranoia, and difficulty processing information. If Trump is consistently not sleeping, that alone might impair his ability to make sound decisions about matters of war and peace. The content of the posts allegedly shows thinking patterns concerning for mental health professionals, grandiose accusations of treason without evidence, elaborate conspiracy theories involving multiple agencies coordinating with foreign powers, inability to accept facts that contradict preferred beliefs, racial targeting of ethnic communities. These aren't just controversial opinions. Sources suggest they might be symptoms of thought disorder or manic episode. The deployment of federal resources to pursue conspiracy theories that courts have rejected raises questions about judgment. When someone uses FBI and DNI to raid election offices, seeking evidence of fraud that every court says didn't happen, that might indicate inability to distinguish reality from delusion. And when that person controls nuclear weapons and can order military action, their cognitive state becomes matter of national security. And reports suggest Trump's behavior is escalating rather than stabilizing. The overnight posting wasn't an isolated incident. The conspiracy theories are becoming more elaborate. The targeting of communities is expanding. The defiance of reality is intensifying. That trajectory might concern cabinet members enough to consider whether intervention is necessary before something catastrophic happens. Even more sources indicate the 25th Amendment process requires Vice President and majority of cabinet to declare president unable to discharge duties. That's high bar, but it exists precisely for situations where president's mental state creates danger. If J.D. Vance and cabinet members are watching overnight posting marathons, conspiracy theory raids, and racial targeting while polling shows political collapse, they might calculate that their own survival requires acknowledging Trump can't continue. But let's talk about the political dynamics that would have to shift for cabinet to actually invoke 25th Amendment. Because sources suggest even if they recognize Trump is unstable, Their loyalty to him and fear of his base might override concern about his fitness. The cabinet allegedly consists entirely of people chosen for loyalty rather than independence. They're not going to act unless circumstances become so extreme they have no choice. Think about what would force their hand. If Trump's behavior becomes so erratic that it creates imminent national security threat. If he orders military action based on conspiracy theories. If foreign leaders start questioning whether they can negotiate with someone experiencing apparent breakdown. If his own party concludes he's guaranteeing midterm catastrophe and only removal can save them. Any of those scenarios might overcome loyalty and force cabinet action. Reports suggest some cabinet members might already be concerned. When Attorney General is facing impeachment over Epstein cover-up and Minnesota extortion, she might calculate that Trump is liability rather than asset. When other officials see polling collapse and Trump's response is escalating the behaviors causing it, they might recognize ship is sinking. Self-preservation could override loyalty if they believe association with Trump will destroy their careers. And there's reportedly practical element. If Trump continues overnight posting marathons, if his decisions become increasingly detached from reality, if cabinet members can't get him to focus on actual governance, they might conclude he's functionally unable to do the job regardless of whether formal diagnosis exists. When President spends nights posting conspiracy theories instead of sleeping, when he orders raids on election offices over events from 4 years ago, when he can't recognize his policies are politically catastrophic, that's inability to discharge duties. But sources suggest invoking 25th Amendment creates enormous political firestorm. Trump would almost certainly contest it. His base would view it as coup. Violence could erupt. The process itself might destabilize government more than leaving impaired president in office. That's why threshold for action is so high and why it's only happened for temporary physical incapacitation, never for mental health concerns. Cabinet would need to be absolutely certain situation demands it. Share this video with everyone you know because there's reportedly another factor, the midterms. If cabinet believes Trump's behavior is guaranteeing Democratic House takeover, which would mean investigations and impeachment, they might calculate that removing him and elevating Vance gives Republicans better chance. Vance is younger, more stable, less toxic to suburban voters who fled Trump. Cabinet members elected as Republicans might decide party survival requires acknowledging Trump can't continue. But beyond political calculations, sources suggest Trump's overnight behavior raises genuine national security concerns that transcend partisanship. When someone with access to nuclear codes and authority over military is allegedly experiencing sleepless nights filled with conspiracy theory posting that creates risk scenarios military planners have to consider. What if crisis occurs while he's in middle of posting marathon? What if he makes snap decision based on paranoid thinking? What if foreign adversaries recognize his impairment and exploit it? Reports indicate Trump compared Minnesota operations to Venezuela operations, suggesting confusion about distinction between domestic law enforcement and foreign military action. That's concerning for someone who might need to make rapid decisions about use of force. If he can't clearly distinguish between operating in American city versus foreign country, how can military commanders trust his judgment about when force is appropriate? And the raid on Fulton County election office allegedly shows Trump deploying federal resources based on conspiracy theories rather than evidence. Think about what that means for intelligence operations. If DNI is being sent to raid domestic election facilities over debunked fraud claims, that's intelligence apparatus being weaponized for presidential delusions rather than protecting national security. That misuse could compromise actual intelligence gathering while federal agents pursue fantasies. Sources suggest foreign leaders might be watching Trump's behavior and adjusting their strategies. If they see American president posting conspiracy theories all night, ordering raids over 4-year-old elections, targeting ethnic communities based on racial animus, they might conclude he's too unstable to negotiate with reliably. That could embolden adversaries to test whether he'll respond rationally to provocations, or it could cause allies to distance themselves from United States leadership they view as erratic, The combination of alleged sleep deprivation, conspiracy thinking, and access to presidential powers creates scenarios military and intelligence professionals might characterize as unacceptable risk. When someone who hasn't slept controls weapons that could kill millions, when someone experiencing possible mental health crisis commands military forces, when someone apparently unable to distinguish reality from delusion has authority to act in national security matters, that situation demanding intervention regardless of political consequences. Make sure you're subscribed because sources indicate this isn't academic question. Trump is president right now. He's allegedly engaging in these behaviors currently, and there's no mechanism to force evaluation of his mental state unless cabinet acts. We're depending on people who were chosen for loyalty to acknowledge when loyalty becomes dangerous. That's precarious position for nation to be in when person holding ultimate authority might be experiencing breakdown. So here's what Trump's overnight spiral reveals about his current state. Hundreds of social media posts made during what appears to be sleepless marathon, accusations of treason against predecessor, elaborate conspiracy theories about CIA coordinating with China, defamation of murdered nurse as domestic terrorist, profanity-laced outbursts, orders to raid election offices over 4-year-old ballots, deployment of DNI to personally oversee domestic search, targeting of ethnic communities with racist characterizations, all while polling shows catastrophic collapse, particularly among Latino voters, and his response is escalating behaviors causing the damage. The pattern might indicate something more concerning than controversial politics. Sources suggest this could be cognitive decline, manic episode, or psychological break requiring intervention. When someone in late 70s exhibits sleepless posting marathons, paranoid conspiracy thinking, racial targeting, inability to process feedback, and deployment of federal resources to pursue delusions, mental health professionals might characterize that as impairment affecting judgment and decision-making. The 25th Amendment exists precisely for situations where president is unable to discharge duties, not just physical incapacity, but any condition preventing them from doing the job. If Trump is spending nights posting instead of sleeping, if his decisions are based on conspiracy theories rather than evidence, if he can't recognize his strategies are failing, that might meet constitutional threshold for removal regardless of whether formal diagnosis exists. The political obstacles to invoking 25th Amendment are enormous. Cabinet chosen for loyalty would have to overcome that to acknowledge their patron is impaired. But if Trump's behavior continues escalating, if national security concerns become acute, if polling shows midterm catastrophe is guaranteed, unless change occurs, self-preservation might override loyalty. Cabinet members might conclude their own survival and party's future require acknowledging Trump can't continue. The national security implications transcend politics. When someone with nuclear authority allegedly isn't sleeping and is posting conspiracy theories all night, that creates scenarios military planners have to consider. When person commanding armed forces compares domestic operations to foreign military action, that confusion is concerning. When intelligence apparatus is deployed to pursue presidential delusions rather than actual security threats, that misuse compromises vital functions. These aren't partisan concerns. These are genuine risks to national safety. The overnight spiral might not be isolated incident. It could be escalating pattern of instability that demands intervention before catastrophic consequences occur. Whether cabinet has courage to act, whether political dynamics force their hand, or whether we continue with impaired president until voters can remove him in midterms remains to be seen. But pretending this behavior is normal isn't option anymore. This requires honest discussion about fitness for office regardless of political allegiances. Stay tuned.